Hello and welcome to another installment of Church Vitality in the Mitten State. I am your host, Reverend Lawrence Richardson, and I'm also your Associate Conference Minister for Church Vitality and Transitions. Today, I have the amazing opportunity to sit down with the Reverend Jim Keat. Jim, can you just take a few moments and introduce who you are and what you do to those who are watching? Because I know a ton about you, and I am truly excited that you're here. And I want to hear from you some things that you want to share about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Lawrence, thank you. And everyone, you've watched a lot of these videos with Lawrence, so you know he's amazing. But let me just remind you all, you have an incredible ACM in this fantastic Mitten State, where I am as well, right over here in Frankenmuth, Michigan. So there's some of the introduction. My wife and our two kids live in Frankenmuth, just north of Saginaw, south of Flint. Nope, other way around. North of Saginaw, north of Flint, south of Saginaw. Whoo, it's been a day. Uh, and I'm the digital minister. The Minister of Digital Worship and Education is the official title at the Riverside Church, which is not in Michigan. That is in New York City. So I work remote. I do not commute that every day. I go in about every 3 months or so for some on-site things. And then in addition to that, I wear a hat over in the world of Convergence, which some of our UCC friends are aware of. And I'm the Director of Online Innovation at Convergence, helping churches use online spaces and resources with greater intentionality. So the two hats at Riverside and Convergence balance each other well. Riverside is the big gig that lets me really lean into a local congregation with a fairly significant history and reach. And then Convergence lets me take those tools and practices and help others learn and benefit from them as well. But yeah, top of the list is dad of two great kids, and I run a lot. I like to run marathons.
So speaking of marathons, there's a lot happening in the world, and we often use running as an analogy, and people will say, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And when I think about digital ministry and technology and how churches
Mm.
are or have been adapting, there's so much of that metaphor that applies. So what's exciting about your work is that you help not only your congregation to connect and to minister across digital platforms, but you also inspire other people to engage platforms very meaningfully. So, as we think about digital ministry and the fact that we are running this marathon together, what are some of the things that you're seeing in the world of church and how people are engaging platforms for digital ministry?
Well, you use the metaphor appropriately, not just as a nice transition, but we all probably felt out of breath when we were forced to sprint back, 5 years ago now, which is crazy to think about when 2020 threw us all into the deeper than we knew was possible end of the digital swimming pool. And, so many clergy, all of us probably found some levels of exhaustion at the pace we were going in largely new territory and uncharted terrain for so many pastors and congregations. But the reality is, what we learned then, what we were thrown into then, wasn't a sprint. It wasn't just a band-aid, a quick fix. That was, a huge culture shift, and not only for the world adapting to just online spaces are authentic and real and allow for great connection and vulnerability and empathy. They can also allow for other stuff, but that's always been true of the world. But there's deep possibility for connection and faith formation in these online spaces. We all found that during, peak 2020, 2021, when we were forced into just online everything. But my hope is that we don't just do that sprint, but we do run the marathon. We recognize that not only has the world changed from a cultural point of view because of the internet in that moment, Zoom with somebody is no longer this weird thing. It's now just a normal part of life. Online things have integrated in totally normative ways now, but hopefully the church can make that paradigm shift as well. And the church doesn't just run the sprint from 5 years ago, but we run the marathon that we're still in today. And I think of today, we're recording this late January 2025. This feels like the longest January ever, by the way. And this just makes me feel, I felt this since November, if you're connecting all the dots here, that digital ministry is even more essential now than perhaps ever before. At one point, we needed it because we had no other way of connecting. Now we need it because there is a lot of organizing happening among certain ideologies that I think, Lawrence, you and I don't tend to resonate with. And we need to make sure that progressive faith communities are present and active and organizing in these online ways, if for no other reason, so that the individual in that, deeply red colored state and community who doesn't have any sense of safety or connection can find a progressive faith community and know they're not alone and know there's someone out there. So, how do churches use great intentionality in how we show up in online spaces? How are we not trying to do all the things so we don't just burn out every 20 seconds, but how do we be intentional about the spaces and the places we show up and the ways we are engaging there so that we can connect with humans? It's not just about numbers and likes and followers and becoming the next Casey Neistat. It's about people connecting with people who are in desperate need of that connection, possibly now more than ever before.
Preach, brother. That this is why you're a pastor as well, because it's more than just the digital technical pieces. It is ministry. There is a
Yeah.
prophetic message. There is purpose and intent behind it. Thank you for that answer. And it leads me to the next question, because a lot of churches do feel that sense of urgency that this is a prophetic moment. And it is kind of reminiscent of the prophetic moment we had in 2020, and there was COVID, and everybody's now has a Facebook live stream or a YouTube stream going, and it wasn't the best or the worst. It was what we had at that time. And some of that's coming back where people feel like, oh, I must get out in the public square, or my theology or our church's views or our services that we have must be out there. And so there is this knee-jerk reaction that I just really hope we can get ahead of. And so in the practical sense, um, I, we're not ministers of IT. We're not going to tell folks exactly what equipment they should use or what platforms they should engage. I mean, there are certainly assessments and things like that that people can use to determine those things. But when I wonder about what are some practical things that people can do to get that voice out there, how would you suggest that churches go about doing that when really the bandwidth to learn new systems and new technology is really short, and maybe the
Yeah.
volunteer capacity to maybe have the different camera angles and editing abilities just might not be there? So what are some things that people can do to really make this moment meaningful for them?
Well, there's a lot to that. I wonder, thinking, it's easy to always compare anything you make to the thousands of things that are out there, which has always been true, but the internet makes it in your face true. My video's not good enough. My whatever's not as good as that. My setup's not as slick as this. Lawrence has more books on his bookshelf than I do. Whatever the comparison might be. But I think so. The first thing is to remember, you are authentically you and show up as authentically as you can as yourself. That's true for preaching, for all of ministry. I mean, a lot of the things I think that are true about digital ministry are just true about ministry. And now it's just being done in the digital spaces. So your authenticity is the greatest gift you can give. Don't worry about the camera angles. Chances are you've already got a very high powered and fully functioning camera and computer and editing studio in the palm of your hand. So you can do a whole lot with this. You don't need the big lights. Just use this and be authentic. I always say the best camera is the one you have access to that you know how to use. If someone gives you a big fancy setup and you don't know how to turn it on, it's not much use to you. It's an expensive paperweight. But the thing that you know how to use is the thing you can use best. So be you. Don't worry about if it doesn't look as good as that person. And that's the thing too. Back to the marathon metaphor. This is a marathon. If your goal is to make one video, you're probably going to have way too much pressure to make that the best video ever. But if you're going to start this process of engaging in digital spaces, maybe that's video, maybe that's, text on Blue Sky or Substack. There's lots of avenues for how you want to show up. But the biggest thing is don't just do it once. You've got to do it again and again and again. Think about the first sermon you preached. You probably are cringing right now thinking about it because you kept preaching and you kept finding your voice and you kept getting better. Welcome to a new pulpit. This is going to take that same iterative process. everyone's first video, first anything, is typically not as polished as their 100th anything. So you got to get the only way to get from A to Z is going A to B and then C and then D. There's no shortcuts. It takes the full 26.2 miles of the marathon. So be yourself and keep doing it. Don't give up. Don't try to just do it perfect the first time, but just incremental improvements every time, and you'll learn a whole lot as you go.
That's really wise and sage advice. I remember my first video. I still cringe at it. It's still on my YouTube page, but I've hidden it from the public. I can only see it, uh, and it's cringy. But I keep it because it is a reminder of exactly that, of where I started. And there's always more or better or different than we can do. And what I hear you saying is that we can just start with where what we have and where we're at and be
Yeah.
there. And what we have and what we know makes sense. And the phone is a new pulpit. Oh my God, that will preach. Now that will preach. So, Jim, if there is a nugget of wisdom that you have to share for churches of any size. I mean, we have rural churches, we have city, urban, suburban churches, churches with 5 to 10 folks that come on a Sunday, and churches with a couple hundred folks that come maybe throughout the week in a number of different programs. As they're navigating online spaces for their personal consumption, but also thinking about online spaces for their church promotions and engagement. Um, what's something that you can leave us with as we think about the future and AI in how all of that comes together?
Well, a couple things there come to mind. I think, anytime a pastor or any leader assumes they learned everything they needed to know back in some class they took or degree they took when they were whenever, obviously that is a certain color of flag we should be waving. It's a red flag because we want to continue learning and exploring and recognizing there's what we know, what we don't know, and what we don't know, we don't know, which is always the biggest section of that aspect. So as we continue to see emerging things around us, whether it's ChatGPT or DeepSeek, the new one that just popped up, all these AI spaces, or we're done with anything that has to do with Musk, and wait, now we're done with anything with Meta, and where do we go if we can't be on Facebook and Instagram and whatever Twitter is, and what do we even do? So don't get overwhelmed. That's my hope. It's take this as an invitation to be informed, to learn something, to whether it's looking up videos on YouTube that can teach you a lot, or reading the articles, or reading the books. Is it down here? Oh, it's upstairs. I have a book by Yuval Noah Harari called Nexus, where he's exploring AI and human communications history. I have this book right here, Unmasking AI, by Dr. Joy, last name I'm not going to try to pronounce. Phenomenal. But just finding resources that can teach you things about areas you don't know about, and add these to the things you're taking in. Yeah, read things for fun. I just finished Onyx Storm this morning. So read stuff that just feeds your soul and is enjoyable, but also read things that help, challenge your thinking and teach you new ways of approaching these complex issues we have. Don't go through the world naively. I think we know that in some aspects, but then we just take whatever the internet gives us as truth or default. We just skip the terms and service agreements. No, slow down and pay attention to the implications of these things. Doesn't mean you stop swimming in these spaces just because you're concerned. No, you put your boots on if it's muddy outside. That's what you do. You just get prepared to go into the muck. And then you decide, is this muck worth going into? But I'm going to say initially, I think it might be because there's still people there. And the church is not called to just run away from anything that feels difficult. If Jesus had said, well, I can't hang out with anyone who's sinful, he would have lost what, three-fourths of his crowd. Well, actually, 100%, obviously, but three-fourths were clearly in the sinful category according to the first century. So, all this to say, don't just run from a space or a thing because it feels like it's irky or murky or whatever, but be there intentionally. Don't just show up to be swept into the algorithm's whims, but be there to show up in your ministerial capacity. That's the sense of being a digital minister is not just being the IT person at your church. It's being a minister. It's bringing minister into these digital spaces. And the reality is, I'm guessing everyone watching this video, if you're a pastor, you're already a digital minister. Did you send an email to a congregant? When did you start doing that? Long before the pandemic. You've been a digital minister longer than that phrase was a thing we would have talked about. So, how do you just be intentional about being a minister in the digital context you're already living in? There's at least maybe one and a half nuggets somewhere sewn in there. I'll let your editor figure that out.
Jim, that was fantastic. I don't think our editor will need to figure out too much. That was fantastic. And I appreciate so much the nuggets of wisdom that you've shared. And I appreciate your time as well.
Mm.
And just the inspiration that you give to me and to people all over. And you've made some vital connections for us. I mean, these platforms are just that. They are platforms. And we are called to do our first work, and that is to be ministers. So thank
Yeah.
you, Jim.
Thank you, Lawrence.
I wish you all the best and peace and blessings to you and your family. And please greet them as well for me. And for all of you that are watching, this brings us to the end of another episode of Church Vitality in the Mitten State. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for your support, for basic support of our church's wider mission, which gives us the ability to make videos like this and also resources like this possible for the Michigan Conference of the United Church of Christ. Thank you so much for all of your support. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Peace and blessings.